Hey, everybody, it's Natalie Bencivenga, and welcome to Facts Over Fear. Now, as many of you who have been following me for a while know, COVID-19 is a very important topic to me. I believe in the impact that it has had on all of our lives, how it has shaped our present and our future, and how this lack of awareness around the collective grief we are all experiencing has really created a divide between us. And so I wanted to talk about this and more on tonight's show. What happens when COVID-19 is something that isn't just going to impact you, but has then begun to impact all of the people around you? And how have you responded to that? And it's okay if you're like, I choose to ignore it, or I'm scared to acknowledge how I feel, or I've totally embraced where we are and I mask everywhere. All of these are sort of the human responses to how we deal with a severe collective trauma. So we're going to dig into that a little bit tonight. I am joined by Bailey Devine. She is going to talk with us about what she's learned, what she misses about life before COVID, and why community care and safety still matter in a world that is so eager to move on. She is a psychologist and an athlete. We're going to talk about why that is important in a little bit. But Bailey, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you and I connected because of COVID, because of the COVID awareness groups that we're both floating in online. And can you share a little bit about your account?
Yes, I think we first connected on Instagram. My handle there is Clean Air Athletics, all one word.
Mhm.
And I actually avoided social media entirely until well after COVID-19 started. And then I saw a need to really put some information out there, make sure that people were getting into contact with the science, and also just advocate for taking precautions. So that Instagram account is where I started. And the whole purpose of the account is to show people that you can still live your life and you can still do activities and hobbies that you love and protect yourself at the same time.
And I really appreciate that because in this world, I feel when you're out wearing a mask, as I think both you and I do regularly in the community when we're in public, a lot of people give you a side eye. People even have asked me, why are you wearing that? Are you okay? Do you feel okay? You know, you get all of those questions, but I think it's important for visibility for people out there that are COVID cautious, or maybe they are, but they're afraid to
Mhm.
mask in public for fear of, alienation or societal pressure, that it is okay to want to take care of yourself and, of course, your community. And it's not just about COVID, right? Airborne viruses are all around us. And this is one of the worst flu seasons we've ever had, too. So it's just mindfulness, I think, that can help sort of bridge those gaps for people. But can you talk a little bit about your own personal experience with COVID-19? Has it impacted you or your loved ones directly? What gave you sort of the impetus to dig your heels in and say, I accept that the world has changed and I am going to adapt with it?
Yeah, I think my initial answer to this question is not super interesting because my personal experience with COVID is boring. So I want to pivot here and say, and talk directly to people who are living with long COVID, ME/CFS, or any post viral condition. I just want to be the person that tells you through your phone today that just reading about your experience was sufficient for me to take precautions. I don't have to learn the hard way. Not everyone has to learn things the hard way. Some of us will do everything we can to protect you so that you can go to the doctor without risking getting more sick, so that you can engage in public space when you're feeling up to it. I don't have to personally have been very, very sick in order to learn this lesson. So that's kind of my approach to this is not everyone has to learn everything the hard way.
Oh, Bailey, I so appreciate that because my experience has been very much the same. I have, knock on wood, I haven't
Yeah.
had long COVID, thank God. I had COVID once that I
Yes.
know of, and that
Okay.
was still with taking precautions. I caught it during that really high wave of Omicron that one summer.
Right.
Um, and luckily I haven't had any lasting effects that I know of. However, I masked before that and I
Good.
masked after that. I'm also really lucky that my husband takes this as seriously as I do, and he also masks everywhere. And I know that is a barrier for a lot of people because they may take it seriously, but other people in their households do not. And to me, to your point, I don't want anyone to become ill. I don't want anyone to lose their livelihood or their lives. I don't want anyone to become disabled or suffer from debilitating fatigue or neurological symptoms or a loss of taste and smell where they can't
Right.
enjoy, a fun dinner out anymore because of
Right.
these things, right? So in the beginning, when this all started happening, I was interviewing a lot of people who were experiencing long COVID. And what I was shocked to find, Bailey, was how few stipulations and avenues people had for financial relief. We haven't
Yes.
updated Social Security disability to
Right.
acknowledge how many people are now disabled and cannot work because of
Y
COVID. We do not have national paid leave. We do not have national health care. There are so many barriers to
Yes.
living a healthful and healthy life. To me, I'm not willing to take that risk, and I don't want to put that burden on anyone else because of my choices. And so, yeah, I don't love wearing a mask everywhere. I wish I didn't
Right.
have to, right? But that's the world we're in right now. So I'm trying to be present in that space. I did lose my uncle last year to COVID, and it was a reminder to me of how this is not going away in the sense that when I tell people I've lost a family member, they assume it was in 2020. And I said, no, it
Right.
was the summer of 2025.
Right.
And I think we have to be mindful of how many people we're still losing. What is it like in your friend group, your social circle? Has it been a challenge for the people in your life to accept the fact that you're, standing in your power here?
I think, they would probably say it's been a challenge. I don't wanna speak for them.
Mhm.
But I know for me personally, um, I've never really been worried about standing out or looking different. So this was not a big deal to me to start to incorporate masking. In fact, I really kind of leaned into like, can I find a mask that matches my hat? Can I find a mask that
Mhm.
matches my glasses? I just saw it as another accessory. Um, but I know that's not everyone's experience. And I know a lot of people feel that social stigma. They feel the stares and they feel really uncomfortable. Um, but I will say I'm definitely not as present in my social circles as I used to be. But part of that also is just aging and careers taking over. And so a lot of this stuff kind of all converged at the same time. And I think that's been really difficult for a lot of people as well.
I agree. And that sort of flows into the next part of this conversation. I want to talk about collective grief. And if you're just joining me, I'm Natalie Bencivenga. I'm with Bailey Devine, and we are talking about the lasting impacts of COVID on ourselves, on our family and friends, on our communities, and how she's navigating this space as an athlete. And we'll touch on that here in a moment. Collective grief is something that we have not experienced for COVID. We don't have a day of mourning, a national day of mourning. We had multiple administrations tell us it was over on both
Mhm.
sides of the political spectrum. So we can't
Mhm.
blame the Democrats, the Republicans. This is a collective bipartisan action of willful ignorance around
Yes.
this topic. What does that do from a psychological perspective when you do not have the opportunity to grieve with your community, with your loved ones over personal loss that we know people have suffered and over community loss, like you said, of having to adapt your social life, your professional life in ways that you weren't anticipating?
I think it can make people feel very depressed and very dark.
Yeah.
Um, to not have something be accepted, talked about, or even looked at. I mean, it probably feels to people who've lost loved ones and people who've lost their livelihood and their hobbies or just their ability to do certain things. I mean, they probably feel completely disregarded and like
Yeah.
they've been forgotten about. And I don't want anyone to feel that way. And, part of the reason that I still continue to take protections and to wear a mask is because it does signal to people that I'm thinking about you in this way and I am grieving with you. Um,
Mhm.
People talk about signaling as being a negative thing, but I think there's some positive in that it's like, hey, I'm wearing on my face when I have my mask on, like what I'm about and what values are important to me. Um, and I think that when we don't know what to do, we should look toward the disability community because people with disabilities have been in this position for far longer than the rest of us who are just now becoming acquainted with this stuff as a result of COVID-19. But people with disabilities have been disenfranchised and, ignored and not helped for decades. And they know what it's like to have a government that doesn't step up and help them. And so they're really wise in this regard. And I think we have a lot to learn from disability advocates and people who talk about their disability online and just make people aware of what it's like.
Absolutely. And I just want to add to, this is a conversation not to shame anyone,
Right.
regardless of where you are with masking as a part
Right.
of your personal experience. But what we're trying to do is call in the idea that if you are thinking about masking, or perhaps you haven't in a while, it's never too late to start talking about this and even consider trying wearing one, especially in high risk spaces like grocery stores, malls. Yes, people still go to malls. Going to the movies.
Yeah.
If you're going to an airport or another form of public transit, a school, these are
Yes.
all very high risk spaces. And why they're high risk, Bailey, is another thing I wanted to touch on with you today because I loved that your handle is Clean Air Athletics. And
Yes.
the clean air component to me is so not discussed at all because,
Right.
many of us would like there to be maybe a day in the future where there is a sterilizing vaccine for COVID, or at least a vaccine that you could get every year, but that's like 99% effective for that year, right? And I think we will get there. I really truly believe that because we have so many incredible researchers and scientists all over the world that really are working on this very hard, and people
Mhm.
want this to be in our rearview mirror. But having said that, that doesn't prevent yet another terrible virus or another terrible
Right.
airborne ailment to come
Right.
into our spaces. We're seeing the rise of measles again because of the lack of trust around vaccines.
Yes.
All of these things, RSV, things that people probably didn't know much about before COVID, but because people's immune systems have been so pummeled by it, they're now getting very ill, even just from the flu. And so
Right.
when you brought up the clean air aspect, I was like very impressed because even a lot of people in the COVID cautious space, they don't talk a lot about beyond the personal mitigation. And to me, the cleaning the air is the biggest and most important communal thing we could do. They did a study recently at a daycare where all they did was put an air filtration device
Yes.
in the space, and they
Yes.
saw COVID drop by 30%
Right.
just from doing that.
Right.
So why did you want to center that in your handle and make it about cleaning the air? Because I think that's very important to note.
Yeah, and thank you for asking because my handle doesn't say Bailey wears a mask or
Right.
Bailey's always masked or anything like that. And I really think it's because I wanted to draw in the attention of people who may not be ready to mask yet or may not be able to do so depending on their own health, their own disability, or what sport they're doing.
Yeah.
So, for example, in college, I was a springboard diver. You cannot dive or swim and wear a mask. They're
Right.
incompatible.
That is very true.
So no one try that. So, I think there really are just real life barriers to being able to mask in every setting. And when that's the case, we need to have other tools at our disposal. Air filtration is the next best thing, ventilation and filtration. What can we do? Can we encourage schools to put those in every classroom? Can we? I really think it's a matter of community organizing here,
Yeah.
convincing people who own these buildings and who rent these buildings wherever we're occupying to think about what they can do to just reduce the pollutants in the air inside. We're not even
Yes.
talking just about COVID here.
I agree. This is an
Yeah,
environmental issue in general.
right.
Hmm.
So I just believe that not everyone is going to be able to mask all the time, and there are other things that we can do, and some of those might be less cumbersome than masking and might be more available to other people. So, as much as we can, cleaning the air indoors and outdoors would
Yeah.
be really great.
I love that. And, when I saw Clean Air Athletics, I was like, oh, someone else that masks while they work out because I wear one that goes around with like the rubber band kind of thing when I work out.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Because to me, when I would just wear a normal KN95 that I might wear to the
Yep.
supermarket or something, I would notice when I would move, if I was doing yoga or if I'm upside down, it would
Exactly.
shift. And I didn't feel
Right.
safe with,
Right.
air kind of being able to pop in there as more freely. So I
Right.
switched to the one with the rubber bands, which is also like the style that I like to wear when I'm traveling because you can get
Yes.
those things
Sip
that you
valve.
put the sip valve. Yeah. So I can
Yes.
have a protein shake and my husband
Right.
can have a protein shake while we're on a plane and we don't have to demask in order to
Right.
drink anything.
Right.
And so because of that, I started wearing one at the very beginning of COVID once we were allowed to go back into, public spaces. And I've just never stopped. And I find it really
Right.
fascinating because I work out hard. Like I like to strength train. I do yoga. I do high intensity interval training. I've used it in Bikram yoga classes where it's hot
Wow.
yoga, right? And
Yeah.
I know. And I found like maybe in the hot class, it's a little more challenging, so I slow
True.
down a little,
Yeah.
but I'm in there,
Right.
and I think it's important once again for that visibility because I'll tell you one story and then I want to hear about your journey with masking in athletic spaces.
Yeah.
Nobody at my studio ever says a word to me about masking. I have a very cool space of people and nobody else masks, but nobody ever says anything. And one afternoon, one of the girls at the studio young women at the studio came up to me and she was kind of being sheepish. And she was like, I wanted to ask you about your mask. And, you kind of go, okay, getting ready for
Right.
the defensive response. And I'm trying to put it down. And she says, I'm going on a trip with my boyfriend and I see you in here wearing masks a lot. And I was wondering if you had any. And I was like, oh my God, I was so excited. And because I always have extra masks in my bag.
Great. Yeah.
And so I just gave her like 4 or 5 and I said, use
Oh,
these on the
nice.
plane,
Yeah.
and she did. And they had a
Wonderful.
wonderful time and they went to their destination and I felt like, oh, they're safer because of that,
Yes.
And so to me, that's the community care that you were
Absolutely.
talking about as being the example. So if it sparks somebody in that moment, they know this is
Yep.
somebody I can say this to.
Yes, this is someone I can ask for help, I can ask for
Yeah,
guidance or resources, and they're not going to judge me.
exactly.
Yeah.
And share with me a little bit about your journey wearing masks, working out, because I see you lifting in your posts. I
Yeah.
wish we lived in the same state so we could go lifting together because that
Oh,
would be
would
so
be
much
so
fun.
cool. Yeah.
But share with me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So, a long time ago, I actually used to wear masks for outdoor allergens before
Mhm.
COVID started. I live in Texas and the Texas Oklahoma region, if you know anything about allergies, it's like one of the worst places you can live. We have really terrible air quality and the pollen is just
Mhm.
wild. So, I grew up having allergies, and I
Mhm.
learned, I guess, in my late 20s that I could wear some kind of covering over my face when I was doing yard work and that it helped reduce my allergy symptoms. Um, I wish I had put 2 and 2 together much sooner about how the same could be done for protection from viruses, but I just
Mhm.
wasn't there yet.
Sure.
Um, so back when COVID started, myself, like so many people, I was wearing a cloth mask because
Mhm.
that's what we were told to do.
Mhm.
Save the really good PPE for the healthcare workers and you wear
Yep.
a cloth mask. And so I did that for a while. I mean, a really long time. I had masks that coordinated with all my outfits and they were super cute and everything. And I'm incredibly lucky that that worked for me and
Yeah.
that I didn't get sick
Yeah.
because we know that cloth masks are not the
Very
best.
effective. Correct. Yeah.
They're something,
Mhm.
so if you don't have access to anything else, still you can use those, but they're
Yeah.
really not great at blocking viral particles. Um, so then when I realized, okay, now everyone can kind of get access to KN95s and N95s. Those are the ratings that we have here in the US. They're different in other
Mhm.
countries. Um, I started testing out different masks to see which one's going to be the best for hard exercise
Yeah.
because I noticed that the type of mask I wore made a really big difference in how I felt during the workout.
Yep.
Um, and so I share a lot of that information on my IG if anybody wants to know. But my favorite mask for working out right now, I always say right now because it could change. I could try
Mhm.
something else that I like better. But I
Mhm.
like the Zimmy Air masks because they have a plastic face frame that
Mhm.
goes inside the filter. So when you inhale,
Mhm.
you don't suck the fabric against your nose and mouth. So for anyone with sensory issues, it just kind of helps. It keeps it held off your face at a distance. And
Mhm.
so it's more comfortable, but it's also the most breathable filter material out there, in my opinion.
Hmm.
Um, so I've just kind of I've probably been through 20 different types of masks at this point that I've tested for fit. I do fit testing, make sure there's no leaks when I'm working out. And then I
Mhm.
talk about what I like and what I don't like. And so that's kind of my go to mask for lifting these days. But again, it could always change if I find something better in the future.
So, Bailey, speaking of lifting, you are doing something really cool. And I'm all for this because, once again, anything that brings attention and visibility to community care and being COVID aware, I think is so invaluable. And once again, it speaks to you as a person just being willing to be out there and be yourself and acknowledge like that here I am and I'm going to do this thing and maybe you'll be the first person
That would be
to
cool.
ever do this. So can you share a little
Yeah.
bit about what you're up to?
Yeah, so there's a magazine which is kind of a very well established magazine in the health and fitness community called Muscle and Fitness HERS, like HERS in big letters across the top. And for the last few years, they've been doing an annual contest where they basically put it out to vote for a community member instead of a model or a famous person or a famous trainer. They're looking for just real life individuals to be on one cover. And so, I saw this and I thought, how cool would it be for the athlete to be wearing a mask on the
Love
cover
it.
of this magazine? Um, it's such a it's such a well-established magazine. People go there for like real tips and advice about health and fitness. And I think nothing could be cooler to me than seeing, first of all, a female on the cover. I love that. I mean, it's a
Mhm.
women's magazine, but still.
Mhm.
um, and you know, there it is front and center, the mask right in the middle of
Yeah.
the magazine cover. I just think we need more positive portrayal of people who wear masks in media because a lot of people don't know anyone who wears a mask, and the assumptions that they make about us are
Mhm.
probably wrong. And
Yeah.
so, this is my attempt to kind of correct some of those assumptions and say, no, you actually can be really healthy and fit and wear a mask, and you
Yeah.
can really love your life and do hard exercise and travel and get out there and do new things. We're not all stuck in our homes
Right. Right.
staring at our phones all the time.
Right. I mean, I don't need a mask to be at home on my phone.
Right. Exactly. Hence why neither one of us is wearing a mask right now.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
No, it's true, and what I think is really important about this is recentering the idea of masking as a part of a
Yes.
healthy life because, you hear people talk about, especially in the fitness world, their gains and like all these
Right.
things that they take, supplements and all this stuff and, vitamin C and zinc and all these
Right.
vitamins and all of that. But what it makes me laugh a little bit because I'm like, okay, guys, if we really are focusing in on health,
Yes.
then we
Bingo.
have to be focusing in on mitigations with
Yep.
COVID. And I say mitigations because friends of mine that have been very cautious, that still contracted COVID, they came down so hard on themselves. And I remind them no one individually can get
Right.
themselves out of a collective health crisis. This is not to be worn as a scarlet letter if and
Right.
when you get COVID, because we have not, as a society, prioritized the health of our communities. And so I want to make that very clear too. This is not
Yes.
about personal failure. All this is about is just trying to navigate the world we are in and using the tools that we have to create a safer environment for ourselves. And it's not about doing it perfectly. It's just about doing it,
Yes.
and deciding, hey, I'm going to the grocery store. I haven't worn a mask in 3 years. Screw it. I heard those two women talk about it. I'm going to put one on and see how it goes. And
Yes.
most likely it'll be fine,
It'll be fine.
you
Yeah.
know? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that's really the takeaway here is we have to look out for one another. And I think we're seeing that slippery slope of what happens as we become more and more focused on just the individual. I think a lot of the issues that we're experiencing right now are based in that lack of the we connection. And so COVID, in a weird way, could be this opportunity to show each other how we show up for each other. So
Absolutely.
yeah. And Bailey, if people want to vote for you, I'm also going to put the link if you guys are, because we've had a lot of people join us. So I'm going to put the link in my Substack when it goes live, either tonight or tomorrow. So
Perfect.
you'll be able to vote for her there. I already voted for you today. I can do it once a day. So I'm going to do it every day
Yeah.
because I want to see you on this cover because I'm just so stoked for you. I think this is so cool. But if other people want to be able to support you or follow your journey on social media, where can they go?
Yeah, I think the easiest place to start is Instagram. That's Clean Air Athletics, all one word. I'm also on TikTok under the same handle. And then on
Mhm.
Twitter, I am Bailey Devine 20.
Bailey Divine.
BAILEY DEVINE 20. And
Okay.
so all of those places, I've got links to how you can vote for me. And you can vote for me for this magazine cover once daily, or more than that if you want to donate some money, but you don't have to donate any money. Just go do your once daily free vote. And let's see if we can get someone wearing a mask on the cover of a fitness magazine.
I'm here for this, and I love your enthusiasm and your willingness to put it out there. We had so many people join. If anybody has any questions or thoughts about their own experience around COVID, or any questions they have at all about masking, this is a very safe space. Like I said, we're not here to judge anyone's experience. We're just here to provide some information and share with you. One more time, Bailey, what was the mask that you really liked, that you like to
Yes.
work out in?
I wish I could actually grab one from my closet. It's called Zimi, Zimi Air. And so
Mhm.
if you just Google Zimi Air, you will find their website. Couple things to note about them. They come in a variety of sizes, which is fantastic. I think everyone can find a size that will fit them.
Mhm.
They have that plastic cage insert, the frame, and they come with or without an exhalation valve. So I wear one with an exhalation valve when I'm doing really heavy powerlifting,
Mhm.
and that helps control the moisture buildup inside the mask.
Hmm.
Now, when I go work with clients, I'm going to put on my non valved version so that no air is escaping the mask, just to be extra safe.
Mhm.
But, in the gym setting where I'm the only one who wears a mask anyway, and people stay a good distance away, I don't worry about the exhale valve, but, that's just an option that makes it more comfortable for working out in.
Wonderful. Well, I
Yeah,
so appreciate you taking time out of your day to connect with me and to share your experience. I'd love to have you back on. We can talk more about what it means to be COVID cautious in today's world and how really the skills around adaptability can transfer from one experience to the next, and talk a little bit more about what it means to be in this moment together. Um, I just want to add this, a little food for thought, everyone. I read this really interesting piece on the Spanish flu and how it led then to the rise of fascism and Nazi
mm,
Germany. And it's
mhm,
interesting to see the parallels between that experience and what we've seen now with COVID and the rise of fascism. And I bring this up because I think whenever you have a pandemic of any kind, including a flu, there is this idea of the superhuman that
right,
follows that, right? And
mhm,
these this idea of eugenics that follows
Yes.
that, and this idea of othering that follows that. And I also think being COVID aware and masking can be a statement that says, I do not give in to that framing. And I
Yes.
believe that no matter who we are or how we are here in this plane of existence, we have a right to be here because we exist. And that is enough. We are not our productivity. So I just
Yes.
want to leave everyone with that thought. Anything else that you'd like to share, Bailey, before we say goodnight?
Yeah, I would just love to follow up on what you just said because it's something I think about a lot. My presence online is really targeting athletes, but I want to talk to anyone who wants to talk about this stuff. But the reason I've chosen to talk to athletes directly is that I've noticed how many athletes fall into the trap of thinking, well, I'm healthy and I'm fit, so I'm immune. I
Mm,
won't get that sick because I eat right and I work out 7 days a week and my VO2 max score is, like, in the superior range, like, I'm
mhm.
good, and that is not borne out in the data. You are not good just because you exercise a lot, and in fact, you may be at more risk of long COVID and post-viral conditions if you're an athlete because you're highly motivated to get back to training as fast as possible. And the data are very clear that with this virus in particular, that is not the right thing to do.
Okay.
So I just want to, it feels like it's along similar lines. There is no superhuman. There is no one who is immune to this. Eventually, if you get enough infections, it will impact you long term.
And I agree with that. And so we have JJ who just said there's a book called A Pale Rider, which discusses the connection from Spanish flu to fascism. Thanks, JJ. I didn't know about that book, and I will definitely have to check that out. Yeah, I think what you're saying in particular about athletes, not only that part, but I think they're more reticent to admit when they're in pain, when they're
Yes,
experiencing health
absolutely.
issues, right? Because of the stigma. I think there's a
Right.
lot of circles of people in certain professions, like healthcare workers,
Yes.
as well, who aren't necessarily allowed to be vocal about their own injury, their own pain, and
Right.
their own suffering. And so, once again, we have an opportunity here with this experience to create a more compassionate, inclusive world. And I know that sounds a little woo woo, but I think we could
Nope.
use a little woo woo right now in the world that we're in. And looking at athleticism as a thing to enjoy and not necessarily a defining characteristic of one's
Yes.
worth.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, Bailey, I could go on all night with you. This was such a wonderful conversation.
Thank you for
Thank you
having
so
me.
much. Absolutely. I really appreciate you. And I admire that you are so strong in your belief system and your willingness to stand up for others and doing so very, very physically and
Yeah.
obviously by wearing a mask. So I applaud you. And I encourage anybody, if you're thinking about wearing a mask, to just try it and just see how it goes, if it's just to the grocery store. I think it could make a big difference and it could even, save your life and save someone else's. So, as always, everyone, I so appreciate you being here in conversation. And until next time, please take care of yourselves and each other. Good night. Thanks again, Bailey.
Bye.
Bye.